people are getting their information now on this kind of thing, a podcast.
Right.
This is the Art Curious podcast.
I have to tell you about the Newsworthy.
This is the Woman Evolved podcast. How y'all doing? Can we talk about it?
Welcome to Show Me the Meaning, Wisecracks Movie Podcast.
Show me meaning! Wah!
Go listen to the podcast Darknet Diaries.
I listen to the Newsworthy
podcast.
Got tens of thousands of people tuning in.
We're on Podcast Magazine's Hot 50 chart at the #1 position for the 10th month.
Oh yeah, Jay Leno, good guy, always wearing Dunham.
That's right.
I grew up in an era of Channel 2, Channel 4, Channel 7.
Yeah. I mean, but really, when we started, we're 3 channels.
And we're at 250 million downloads on our network of 6 shows.
I'm a first-generation refugee immigrant.
The reason you sacrifice fundamentally is to gain something higher.
The amount of anger that went into this crime is something that you don't see every day.
Exploring the unexpected, the slightly odd, and the strangely wonderful in art history.
One of the top 50 women changing the world in media and entertainment.
Think of everything that's changed since we started.
Thank you to the advertisers for letting us share what we love. Thank you to AdvertiseCast for connecting us.
Well, there you go. That's it for this week's podcast. Be sure and tune in next week for our next one. Duh.
Good afternoon. My name is Dave Hanley, VP of Business Development and co-founder of AdvertiseCast.
Hello, and I'm Elsie Escobar. I am the community manager over at Libsyn.
One of the reasons we're so excited about the AdvertiseCast and Libsyn partnership is that we both have a deep ethos, which really revolves around an open podcast ecosystem. In today's environment, where some companies are establishing some walled gardens around proprietary platforms, we really believe in an ecosystem that's open for listeners and magnifies these powerful creator voices. Both companies are very creator-centric also. And what that means is that we're enabling, not controlling, content creators, and really there to help them be successful. Today, we're in a creator economy. These powerful independent voices are driving real change and making a difference. This is the first time for both Libsyn and AdvertiseCast at the IAB Upfronts, and we're really excited to be here in front of you today.
Libsyn has always stood for the independent podcaster. It really did come from independent podcasters, those that recognized even from the beginning the challenge sometimes that it was for the everyday person to really get their voices out there. And those are really the most important people that create the most vibrant communities out there, have so many incredible things to say. And Libsyn from the get-go has been pro-independent podcasters, those independent voices, those that do things themselves and then even maybe start small, but they create these massive ways in which they communicate with their vibrant audiences.
Well, Elsie, you'll be back shortly to introduce some of the great content that we've got to present today, and also to do a great interview with one of our podcasters, Sarah Jakes Roberts from Woman Evolve. But for now, I'm going to shift gears here and talk a little bit more about AdvertiseCast's overall philosophy and approach as it relates to advertising. At AdvertiseCast, when we think about the overall podcast advertising ecosystem, we think about the tip of an iceberg. And today, what that means is that most of the advertising campaigns are going towards that very small tip above the surface of larger media companies. And you might ask yourself, why is that when the majority of podcast content is actually created by independent publishers that are kind of underneath the surface? And I think a lot of it comes down to friction. So it is a very fragmented marketplace with a lot of independent publishers, smaller networks, and there's a lot less friction to place ad buys with larger podcast publishers. Now, this does not have to be the case. One of the things that we're looking to do today is shift the perception that working with a large number of independent or disparate publishers is actually, a lot of work and very challenging. Really, that's one of the main reasons AdvertiseCast exists today. So let's take a quick look here at the problem, and let's talk about the solution in terms of how you as a brand can actually leverage this power of indie. And a lot of it comes down, I believe, to logistical challenges or perceived logistical challenges. So, dealing with, many IOs, dealing with billing across many different podcasts, creative challenges, and even just simple communications with podcasts. Now, the other big questions are quality control, brand safety, measurement. Those are all the things that are probably, kind of swirling around in your head as an advertiser or an ad buyer. Now, the solution here really is working with a partner like AdvertiseCast. So what we enable advertisers and agencies to take advantage of this indie revolution in terms of independent podcast creators and their extremely engaged and powerful audiences through three things: technology, team, and content. So when you work with AdvertiseCast, you work with one partner that helps you tap into thousands of independent podcast creators who influence literally hundreds of millions of listeners. The other thing to consider when working with these more independent creators is that they're often very open to unique formats and integrations. So we definitely encourage our advertising partners to think outside the box when it comes to the creative formats. So there's a lot more to podcast advertising than the simple scripted or talking point based host read ad. We always encourage our advertisers to think about other ways that they can engage with that audience through things like maybe product giveaways, show sponsorships, branded segments, custom content, creative integrations, and really the opportunities are endless. And we'd really encourage brands to speak with the podcasters themselves. Very often, these are extremely creative people and have some great ideas about how to integrate your brand into their show in terms of how it will best resonate with their audience. The other thing that I'll just mention here is that rounding out, this whole concept of power of indie is that, why are we so excited about it? Well, not only is it just great to support such an independent movement with such great creative individuals, but we've actually run the numbers. So we looked at a large-scale campaign with over 800 shows participating on this campaign of all different genres, all different sizes, and we actually analyzed on a cost per acquisition basis how these shows performed for that brand. What we determined was out of the three tiers of content being, small, medium, and large, say sub 20,000 downloads per episode, 20 to 500,000 and 500,000 plus, the smallest tier of shows actually outperformed the other two tiers by quite a bit. And from a brand perspective, they obviously couldn't be more excited about tapping into that content that not a lot of brands today are really focusing on and really driving some great results for their campaign. We're really excited today to present to you some of our great content opportunities that you as a brand can have the opportunity to tap into. Many of these are independent, diverse, and powerful voices that are making a huge difference in the world through the content that they produce and are really providing great value to their loyal listeners.
Thank you so much, Dave. And now I am so excited to introduce to you Dr. Phil and his Fill in the Blanks podcast. So when we talk about indie from Dr. Phil, it is not small. Dr. Phil's Fill in the Blanks podcast has gotten over 50 million downloads since launching, and listeners get an unfiltered look behind the scenes, as well as some fabulous guests. So new season is coming up in 2021, and I'll turn it over so that you can hear directly from Dr. Phil.
That was incredible.
On Fill in the Blanks, I have interviews with interesting people who are the best at what they do, from actors and performers.
I think we have grown so much individually.
You're too normal to be so successful. To experts in neurology and law enforcement.
As a country, we are going to have to deal with this racial discussion.
Fill in the Blanks is back with all new shows that will entertain, inspire, and more importantly, provide you with the information you need to fill in the blanks blanks in your life. I'm hosting top experts in brain health and behavioral science, the best women and children's advocates and visionaries who share their experience, strength, and hope. As always, I'll be discussing important topics, including how to help children navigate the new normal, the warning signs that someone is in a cult, and two of my favorite topics, how to interpret body language and how to understand human behavior.
We're really excited about the upcoming season of Fill in the Blanks, which is actually starting in a few weeks. At the end of May, Dr. Phil is going to be releasing some new episodes, and there's actually still some opportunities for brands to get involved. So feel free to reach out if you think your brand can benefit from getting in front of Dr. Phil's audience, which is a highly engaged group of female-skewed listeners with a median age of 42 that are very often household purchase decision makers. So let's switch gears here now and talk about one of our other great networks within AdvertiseCast, the Optimal Living Daily Network. Now, Optimal Living Daily has actually been a staple atop the top charts for many years now. And really, they've built a daily habit for their listeners that actually engage with their content, which is essentially audio blogs, and a really different way to consume this type of content. Now, these listeners are lifelong optimizers in different ways. And the podcasts themselves have actually garnered over 250 million downloads since inception. The Optimal Living Daily Network actually has 6 podcasts. Again, these shows all offer daily content to their audiences. And let's actually go ahead and meet some of the hosts.
Hey, it's Justin Malik, host of Optimal Living Daily and producer of our network, where we get permission from authors to simply read their content out loud. We cover personal development, personal finance, health, relationships, entrepreneurship, and more. I started with just a few authors. 5 years later, we have hundreds, and we're at 250 million downloads on our network of 6 shows. Our survey showed 75% of Optimal Living Daily listeners identifying as women, with well over half having an income of $75,000 or more, and around half married, all looking to optimize their lives.
Having aligned brands on the show lets us do what we love to do, while also spreading the word about products and services that we actually enjoy using and would talk about anyway.
Thank you to the advertisers for letting us share what we love and for keeping us going. Thank you to AdvertiseCast for connecting us. And of course, IAB for having a standard. It's all thanks to you.
One of the most popular genres in podcasting is immersive audio storytelling. In our next feature, we are going to hear from the creators of 2 amazing podcasts, The Fall Line and One Strange Thing. The Fall Line explores stories of cold cases in the Southeast, and One Strange Thing searches the nation's news archives for stories that just can't be explained. Let's hear from the creators.
We're from the Fall Line podcast, and we have been working since 2017 to bring cases to our audience that people have not really heard of. They haven't gotten much media attention.
Invariably, there's going to be a family who has been trying again and again to get that piece of information from the last page to the first page.
We are starting an initiative coming up soon where we will be able to provide family members of missing loved ones therapy so that we can contribute not only to helping them get their story out there, but also to some healing that they all really could benefit from.
Not only is it a really ethical and ethos-first true crime, which is unique in and of itself, right? But it's also really, really well-crafted and really engaging. We take it seriously, so our audience takes it seriously. And as a result, they take everything we do seriously. And the things that we endorse, they take very seriously.
I'm excited now to introduce one of our fantastic hosts within the AdvertiseCast network from a great show called Woman Evolve. Elsie is going to interview Sarah Jakes Roberts, host of the Woman Evolve podcast. Sarah not only is a podcaster, but she has many facets to her media empire. In addition, she actually just released a new book called Woman Evolve that just recently hit the New York Times bestseller list.
You know, I just want to chat a little bit about being invaluable. And that word, what does your community mean to you, and how invaluable are they?
Oh my gosh, this is such a good time to ask this question. I just released my latest book. And, whenever you're publishing, our publisher's goal, our marketing team's goal is for us to make the New York Times bestsellers list. And we didn't get any national media the week that the book came out. But because of this audience and how they believe in this message, we made all of the lists, New York Times bestsellers, Wall Street Journals, USA Today, and we did it without using the organic formula of national press combined with a marketing plan. And I think it just speaks to their belief in the voice, their belief in the message behind Woman Evolve. And it is because of them that we've been able to take this message literally throughout the world, but specifically through the podcast, we have become international because of that sense of community and sisterhood.
How do you feel about bringing advertisers to your show? Because I know that you value your community as well, and making those choices. Give me a little bit of thought behind those partnerships.
Well, I have to tell you, Elsie, I knew when I first started the podcast that I was speaking to a very large demographic of consumers, and especially when you talk about women in the marketplace. And so I always wanted to introduce advertisers into the podcast, but I wanted to do it in a way that was organic, that really resonated with what the women needed, how they were navigating their lives, their growth, their evolution journey. But I also didn't want it to feel like, okay, let's pause and take a commercial break. And so what I've tried to do is be really organic in introducing the content that our advertisers offer. When I can allow all of us to agree on the need, then I get to introduce the solution through our advertising partners. And we've received so much feedback from people who have engaged with sponsors for the podcast and how it has literally helped their lives, saved them times. And so it's great that we get to offer resources that help.
Congratulations to you and to your team and to all the success that you've had, and the work that you're doing, the connections that you're making. It's so inspiring. It really, truly is.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
Thanks so much, Sarah and Elsie, for that great interview. And thanks so much, Sarah, for taking part today in the presentation to give us insight into what you're doing with the Woman Evolve movement. That's really powerful stuff. Next up, let's switch gears and talk about a new podcast from popular comedian and ventriloquist Jeff Dunham. Probably one of the first podcasts out there to feature ventriloquism. And Jeff has brought on some great guests, even in the short time he's been running the show, which has already garnered a large following. Guests like Howie Mandel, Jay Leno, and David Copperfield, to name a few. And Jeff's trusty sidekick often chimes in from time to time to give his thoughts. So let's take a look here and give you a feel for the Jeff Dunham podcast.
Tell us a story about how you got kicked out of high school, the big one, which to me was just genius.
I just called, I still, to this day, do prank calls.
Right.
I'm doing them I'm doing a podcast too. And it's me and my daughter. I do prank calls and challenges and talk to friends. It's just bizarre. It's all the things that I do that kind of keep me going. But I called out of the Yellow Pages. I was just in the Yellow Pages. We were in the house and I saw a construction company. So I called the construction company. I don't think of where this is leading, but I called and they said, so-and-so construction. And I said, yes, my name's Howie Mandel. I didn't even change my voice. So I go, my name's Howie Mandel and I'm calling about this school. We're interested in adding an addition onto the library. About 4 feet 40 feet into the western field, and I would love to get if I can get a quote on that. Can you tell me when you'll be there? And then I kind of knew that I took math class, at 310 or 210 or whatever, right. And math class overlooked on that field. So I said, if you can be there between 210 and 240, that would be great. Just measure and give me a. So now I'm sitting in math class and I see a guy in the field with tape measure and things like that. He's got a little tool belt and he's doing all this. And I can't say, look on the field. And I didn't tell anybody. It's funny. Within 5 minutes, I hear, will Howard Mandel please come down to the office? He says, did you hire a company to put an addition onto the library? And I said, no. And he goes, well, I just spoke to a gentleman out in the field that said you hired him. He gave us your name. And I go, well, you misinterpreted. I am getting 3 estimates. Nobody has hired. And he goes, just sit down. Just sit down. Like he's mad. And I was asked to leave the school.
Well, the only parallel between you and Howie that I could think of was your hair.
What? He doesn't have a green, lovely tuft like I do here.
No, he's bald like this. Perfect. So you look a little like Howie Mandel.
Oh, thanks a lot.
Oh no, look at Jeff. Rothband.
That's
We're
nice.
a mess.
Number one, we talked about the power of indie and how your brand can tap into highly engaged podcast audiences through these amazing hosts and personalities that offer unique perspectives. We talked about leveraging this at scale, and that although the perception might be that this is very, very difficult, that is why we exist at AdvertiseCast, to help you leverage that message out to all of these powerful audiences in an organic and creative way. So we're here to help. Reach out to us, put our technology and our team to work to help your brand. Thanks so much for taking the time today, and we look forward to hearing from you. Have a great rest of the IAB Upfronts.